Prosecutors represent the government and victims in criminal trials, but what are some of the details of their jobs? We'll talk with 3 local prosecutors next on WNIN Newsmakers. Welcome to WNIN Newsmakers. I'm Noah Alatza, the Chief Communications Officer at the University of Evansville. All of the communities in our region depend on prosecutors to keep criminals off the streets. Here to talk about the Vanderburgh County Prosecutor's Office is Diana Mers. Thanks for joining us today, Diana. Appreciate you making time.
Thanks for having me.
So first and foremost, what does the Vanderburgh Prosecutor's Office do on a day-to-day basis?
So the Vanderburgh County Prosecutor, I oversee the county, so it's around 180,000 population, and we're charged with assessing all of the criminal cases and filing charges where appropriate and prosecuting criminal cases. So when you see a police call to someone's house or a DUI or any crime committed in Vanderburgh County, either from the Evansville Police Department or the Sheriff's Department, they send it to our office. We assess it for charges, file charges, and then we take the case from there up into trial.
You were originally elected back in 2022, sworn into office in early 2023. What inspired you to want to become a prosecutor? Yeah,
so I started out my career in prosecution. I started out practicing in Illinois. I lived in Chicago for a little bit. I am a Vanderburgh County native, so grew up here, went to North High School, and then, went off to college and law school. And I really had a passion for prosecution, and my career took me through that. And then I ended up at the Attorney General's office eventually. And right before I ran for prosecutor, I was managing the largest litigation section at the Attorney General's office. So we had practice in federal and state courts, and I really just liked the management of all that, the heavy caseloads, managing, younger attorneys and the litigation. And so, I knew that crime in Evansville was increasing, and I'd been hearing, issues with that happening in Vanderburgh County. And I just thought, hey, I'm ready. I have the prosecutorial background. I have the management background at the Attorney General's office. So I put my name in the hat to run, and luckily I won.
Very neat background there. And we know that prosecutors across the board are traditionally elected, but I think for viewers at home particularly, how does the rest of your office get staffed? What does that process look like? Yeah,
so I have deputy attorneys. So their powers essentially come from the prosecutor. So I swear them in, and they practice under the guise of, the elected prosecutor. And then we also have other staff. So all in all, the office has about 75 employees. And aside from the attorneys, those are just a variety of folks that do a lot of things within the office to keep it running.
We know that collaboration with your office is extremely critical with many of these different community partners and agencies, particularly the Evansville Police Department and the Vanderburgh County Sheriff's Office. So, Diane, I'm just curious, how does your office work closely with those two entities in particular, and then what other outreach are you doing on that end?
Yeah, so like you said, we work hand in hand daily. I work with the Evansville Police Department, the Sheriff's Department. We also have federal partners from, the FBI, the ATF, depending on what cases are happening. So, we have weekly meetings at least with law enforcement. We have different groups, drugs and guns or sex crimes, things like that. So we're consistently meeting and, staying abreast of what's going on and, just working collaboratively on questions or issues or things like that. So it's really fun. We have a great relationship, and we work, like you said, really closely together.
How many cases each and every year does your office handle? And I'm curious if you're seeing a particular rise of something that's more prevalent potentially in the community when you're talking about crime.
Yeah, so, I think right now we have about 5,000 pending felonies going on right now. And, as far as prevalence goes, there's ones that are high profile, like everyone hears about the murder cases and things like that. We are seeing an increase of like fentanyl crimes. Meth is on the rise again as well. So, you're always combating the drugs and the gun crimes.
What are some of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis that people at home might not know a prosecutor does?
Yeah, so, there's a lot of community outreach. If a case happens that the media want to know about, it can be a lot of impromptu press requests and things like that, so we field that. The prosecutor's office also has an entire child support division, one of the biggest divisions in the office, so we prosecute and enforce child support cases. They do a great job. We also have adult protective services within the office, and then just a lot of community outreach events. I try to get out. I think Dog Days is coming up, for example, so we do community outreach things. A lot of those are on nights and weekends, so just trying to get the word out about the office and what services we offer. We have victim advocates as well, so we work with a lot of folks who are victims of sexual abuse and domestic violence, and so I do a lot of outreach with like Holly's House and Albion and things to try to get people resources as well who are victims of crime.
And we know that outreach is so critically important. It's something we talk about all the time. You've now been in office, though, for nearly 2 years. We're coming up on that 2-year mark. What are some of the achievements that you think you're most proud of as we hit that milestone as Vanderburgh County Prosecutor? So
first, I'm really grateful we're able to hire. We've been lucky with hiring deputy prosecutors. We have a great staff in the office, a really strong staff. We've established a training regime, and we have great results in trial. I try to issue press releases regularly, so if you follow the Vanderburgh County Prosecutors Facebook page, those press releases are there, and I do send them out to the media as well to let the public know what's going on. I've gotten good feedback on that. We also got a $700,000 federal grant awarded to us to start a crime gun intelligence center. So that's us in collaboration with local law enforcement and federal law enforcement. This is one of 2 prosecutors' offices in the country that is the actual grantee for this particular grant, and what we're doing with that is using it to combat gun crime. So it gives us a lot of tools and resources to be able to get ahead of gun crime in Evansville instead of, reacting to it when there's a murder.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face then on a day-to-day basis in your role?
So it's really dynamic. You want to make sure that you're spreading your attention out over a variety of things. So not only, making sure that people aren't drinking and driving, but making sure that we are staying abreast of new cases, staying ahead, being proactive, preventative measures such as the Crime Gun Intelligence Center, for example, trying to predict possible crimes that would happen, but also making sure that you're spreading your resources out to other cases as well, such as, sex crimes cases. We have taken control in the Vanderburgh County Prosecutor's Office of our regional sexual assault response team. So we're really upping our resources to sex assault crimes and as well as domestic violence. So there's just a variety of things to prosecute, and you want to make sure that you're giving attention to all of it. I don't have a focus necessarily where I would, neglect a certain area, even if it's not, the most crime committed in Evansville. All of this stuff is important, and the cases impact individuals. So you want to make sure that you're spreading your attention out over all the things.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned that sending those press releases and posting them to social media, et cetera. Is there any way else that members of the public could get involved or stay up to date with the Vanderburgh County Prosecutor's Office, and anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, so, if they have any questions, they can certainly reach out to my office if it's a question on a particular case, but really following the Facebook page. We're redoing our website as well, so stay tuned for that. But the media here has been great on picking up the press releases when a big case comes out. And like I said, they can always call the office with questions or concerns. We have a lot of resources in the office. If you or someone needs resources for child neglect or domestic violence or sexual assault, if that's the first call you want to make, instead of calling law enforcement, like EPD directly, for example, we can start helping you with resources.
All right. Diana Mers, the Vanderburgh County Prosecutor, thank you so much for making time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Warrick County Prosecutor Michael Perry. Michael, thank you so much for being with us here today. First, wanted to just start with some of your background, and why did you ultimately decide to run for Warrick County Prosecutor?
Well, I was a deputy prosecutor in Vanderburgh County since 1998, and the occasion arose where I had some people ask me to come over to Warrick County and run for prosecutor. They wanted some change over there, so I moved over there and ran for prosecutor and was fortunate enough to win.
How many people do you have in your office, whether that be lawyers or support staff? How many people are we talking that help you on a day-to-day basis?
Our staff, we have 18 people in the office, and including myself, there's 6 attorneys.
Wanted to talk to you about some kind of current affairs that are going on. There's a rather high-profile case going on in Warrick County, and don't want to get into any of the details right here, right now. But the question for you, and I think what would be particularly helpful for viewers at home, is the appointment of a special prosecutor, and what does that look like? If you could even just give a brief background or education on times in which a special prosecutor is appointed and what kind of that process looks like.
Sure. You look at it from a standpoint of, is there an actual conflict, or is there a potential for somebody to look at it and say there's a potential conflict? A couple of the individuals that were being investigated in this case are friends of mine, and also elected officials, and there's this particular statute that deals with elected officials that we should ask for one when that happens. I thought the dual aspect of this, both friends and elected officials, that I asked for a special prosecutor so that nobody would think that I was playing favors or doing anything, improper to help these individuals out.
How often, I'm just curious, in your tenure, you've been the prosecutor for 10 years in Warrick County, how often do you call in a special prosecutor? Is it a regular occurrence? Is it something rare?
It's funny because when I first went over there, I didn't think I'd have to do that much because I wasn't from the area growing up, or I didn't go to school there. But surprisingly, I've had quite a few cases where I've done it just to make sure that the appearance of impropriety has not taken over.
That's interesting. We'll switch gears now, and we understand, your office covers a lot more jurisdictions than in Vanderburgh County. What are some of the police departments, different agencies that you work with on a day-to-day basis? How are you collaborating with them to ensure an overall smooth process? Right.
So our biggest partner is the Warrick County Sheriff's Department, but we also deal with Boonville Police, Chandler Police, Newburgh Police. We deal with the DNR, Department of Natural Resources. We deal with ISP, State Police, and some of the federal agencies as well. We have a very good working relationship with all the law enforcement agencies in our county, and all the agencies actually have a very good working relationship with each other, so it's a very collaborative effort. We've had several murder cases where we've had probably 4 or 5 different agencies working together to help us get the person responsible for the crime.
How many cases do you, on average, see each and every year? And then are there certain cases that are more prevalent in Warrick County?
Right. Now, I don't know the specific number of cases. I'm going to estimate probably between felony and misdemeanor that we probably handle over 2,000 cases a year. A lot of our cases involve the use of drugs or alcohol, and that include property theft, domestic violence, battery, things along those lines, but they seem to be all wrapped around an addiction of some sort.
That's fascinating. And so that's really what you're handling primarily, as you mentioned there, domestic, battery.
Right.
You see DUIs, you see drug arrests,
yes,
things of that nature. So you've been in office now 10 years, long enough to know how the Warrick County
Sure.
Prosecutor's Office functions, right? I mean, you're leading it day in and day out. What are some of, you would say, your top achievements in your tenure there so far?
Well, I think the main achievement is the repair of the relationship between the prosecutor's office and law enforcement. That was my main goal when I took office, was to repair that relationship, to improve the channels of communication. We, as an office, train the law enforcement officers once or twice each year on new case law, new cases, new statutes. We do mock trials to help them get ready for testifying. But I think, that's the thing I'm most proud of, is the relationship that's been formed between our office and the law enforcement agencies.
And we know those relationships and communication are so critically important. Michael, we know that Warrick County, predominantly a rural county, right? You've got Newburgh, you got a little
Sure.
bit of Boonville as well. What are the biggest challenges that causes you in your office when you're talking about a county with not a lot of resources, let's say? What kind of challenges does that cause you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I mean, we do have to rely, again, on certain outside agencies, state police, maybe the FBI, DEA, things like that. The one thing that really struck me about Warrick County the first time I ran was I had no idea how big it was. And I literally went and put signs up around, and I did mileage, and I think I drove 200 miles, and I never left the county. Yeah, from just going, all the way around. So it is a rather big county, and but we try to do the best we can to make sure that every citizen is taken care of, not just the ones down in Ohio Township.
Anything else that you would like to add? And also, how can people stay up to date with you and your office? Whether that be through press releases, social media. Is there any way that, citizens of Warrick County can stay up to date with what the prosecutor's office is doing?
Right. So I do have a Facebook that I post on occasionally. I'm not posting every single, case that we have. Most of our cases are handled through plea agreements. We do have quite a few trials, but not as many as Vanderburgh County. We obviously don't have a lot of the violent crime that Vanderburgh County has with the shootings and those things, but we try to keep the citizens up to date with that. My office is fairly an open office. Anybody that wants to call me can call me and talk to me. And the one thing that we have been doing, I think we're going to pause this year, but every year except for the 2020 pandemic year, we've had a chili cook-off in the fall. But this year we're pausing it because two of my deputies are going to be involved in a murder case. So it's going to be tough.
Well, you have to keep us posted when that returns,
right?
Because I'm sure that's always a great experience.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Michael Perry, the Warrick County Prosecutor, thank you so much for making time. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Finally, we have Michael Cochran, the Gibson County Prosecutor. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael. We appreciate you making time.
You're welcome.
So first, what brought you to become Gibson County Prosecutor?
I saw an opportunity a few years ago. My predecessor was going to run for judge. He had let me know that. I had expressed some interest maybe in running for that office, but he decided he wanted to run for that. And so I had previously worked in the prosecutor's office as more than a decade before that for a short term, and it was the kind of work I like, so I decided at that point to run.
How big is the size of your staff there at the Gibson County Prosecutor's Office? Including
myself, there's 13 of us.
And walk me through, we know that Gibson County is obviously very rural, right? What kind of challenges or effects does that pose to your office on a day-to-day basis, the size of Gibson County and how rural it really is?
Gibson County is geographically one of the largest counties in the state. So, from point to point, it covers a lot of square mileage. As far as challenges, it's as a rural county, we have probably unique challenges that maybe don't exist in a more urban setting like here in Vanderburgh County. Most of our challenges are dealing with drugs. We also have, we're a corridor, so we have Highway 41 goes through our county as it does Vanderburgh. We also have I-69. I think that creates a unique set of challenges for a rural county because we know that those thoroughfares or highways offer transport for certain things.
So do you often see a lot of cases, people getting pulled over on I-69, getting pulled over on 41? I'm assuming, right, they're pulled over in Gibson County, so ultimately it ends up on your desk.
At some point, yeah. Sometimes we do see that quite a bit.
What does your caseload look like then every year, even ballpark estimate of how many cases come through your office?
Sure. We process, and we're just dealing with misdemeanors and felonies, anywhere between 1,200 to 1,400 cases a year. That doesn't include child support and infractions.
Michael, you are now, as you said, in your 8th year as the Gibson County Prosecutor. You've obviously been on the scene of many crime scenes over those 8 years. For our viewers at home, can you help them understand what kind of criteria does a crime need to meet when you're called out to the scene to do investigating, to collect evidence, to do what you need to do? Is there a certain level of criteria that comes into play there?
Actually, I would say that I generally rely on my agencies to do their job. I don't generally direct things on a crime scene. There's, I think, maybe 2 occasions where I've been called out, and those are typically involving a murder. But for the most part, we have good detectives in Gibson County through the various agencies. I rely on them. We have an investigator in my office, so anything that needs investigated from a prosecutorial standpoint, we would utilize my investigator. But for the most part, the detectives we have with Gibson County Sheriff's Department, our agencies we work with, Princeton Police Department, They have detectives on staff, Indiana State Police, and we rely on them. They do good work.
I was going to ask you about those agencies in particular and just overarching about that collaborative effort that you have. Are you working primarily with the Gibson County Sheriff's Office, ISP, Princeton? There are some other rural constituencies, though, as well, and how does that work in the grand scheme of things?
Sure. The bulk of our work is with probably the Gibson County Sheriff's Department, given just the geographical space that their jurisdiction is. Obviously, the Princeton Police Department would probably be the second, just based on the size of the community. We do work with Oakland City Police Department, Hobstadt Police Department, and then a couple of our smaller communities even have town marshals we work with. So, but primarily it's what you would think: the Sheriff's Department, Princeton Police Department, and then when problems arise in those other communities.
So Michael, talk to me about some of the work that you do with the various school districts in Gibson County.
Over the years, I have been asked to come in and give presentations to all of our schools. We have 3 school corporations in Gibson County, primarily dealing with juvenile law. I do handle the juvenile cases for my county, and basically offer kind of a tutorial to the students as to some of the things I see and how kids who do get in trouble sometimes end up in court or have their issues handled by my office. And so we really focus on words have meanings, that words can get you in trouble, particularly in a school environment, and to just let them know that, hey, you've got to think before you speak.
What's your message to the residents of Gibson County who might not necessarily understand what the prosecutor's office does? What do you say to those folks who don't necessarily know how it functions? Can they get that information from you? You said the open door policy, et cetera.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if anyone had any questions about how it works or any questions about our office, they could call us. That's for sure. We would be happy to answer any questions they would have.
In your 8 years now on the job, are there any really high-level notable achievements that you feel like you've accomplished that you want to share?
I'm proud of the work that we do just in general with regard to having a set of standards that we have in Gibson County, and we maintain those. We do try cases, and I feel like we do a very good job at it. And I'm proud of those trials that we've done.
How can people stay connected with you in your office on a day-to-day basis? You got social media, press release, anything like that?
I don't maintain a social media account for my office. My office, we have an open door. I'm there if anybody needs to call me. I don't shy away from phone calls or push you to my secretary. So anybody needs to get a hold of me can call the office, and be happy to sit down and talk to you about any problems that they have.
All right. Michael Cochran, the Gibson County Prosecutor, thank you so much for making time. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks to our local county prosecutors for joining us and letting us know more about what they do. I'm Noah Alatza, the Chief Communications Officer at the University of Evansville. Thanks for watching WNIN Newsmakers.